Hey there, Divination Divas. I thought it'd be fun to do a little well, this isn't a box, an unboxing and unenveloping of my book. So I had showed the proof, which is like a pre-sale printed copy that you get when you go through a actual publisher. They send you galley proofs that you don't have to pay for, but when you self-publish, you do have to pay for them. So I had the proof, but this is the actual retail copy. And I thought, let me show it to you. And can you, let's make sure we can see this. Yeah, we can. Pardon this wonky ankle. Like, I have the worst freaking, so. And yeah, definitely did not make it better because I turned the damn video off. So here's the book. It's 8 by 10, and actually, it's a little bit larger than Tarot on Earth. Just a little bit around the edges. So if you're familiar with that, it's about the same size. And I designed this cover. So actually, let me talk a little bit about the design. This is probably not going to be interesting for everybody, but maybe it'll be interesting for some folks. So I did the layout for both my books, which is one reason why, they're not exactly what you would see from a publisher, but I think it did a pretty good approximation. The first time I used Adobe, it was, InDesign, which is massively expensive, and I haven't really needed it since, so I canceled my subscription. In the meantime, I discovered a company called Serif that has, a suite of similar programs called Affinity Designer, which is their kind of version of Illustrator, Affinity Publisher, which is very much like InDesign, and then Affinity Photo, which is like Photoshop. And their one-time subscriptions, Design and Photo are both available on iPad as well as Mac and PC, and then Publisher is available on Mac and PC. And so I did this cover using Affinity Photo, and then the interior I did with Affinity Publisher. And they're like a one-time, I think it's like $40, and it's not a subscription-based thing like Adobe, and they're great, and I find them actually a little less overwhelming. So that's why I did that. And then, so that's the front, and then the back is this. There's a picture of me from grad school, and yeah. So this is what the cover looks like. Yoink. So I'm pretty proud of the way it looks. And then we get inside the bookie poo. And some other interesting things, that I'll tell you I put in the copyright page, where things came from. So the images of the cards are from a public domain, pre-US Games edition of the deck, which is available at Wikipedia and sacredtexts.com. You'll see as I go through that I created some doodles and just some little artworks that I wanted to sort of give the book some life. And those were created using Procreate for iPad, and also watercolor brushes and paper textures by Drifter Studios. And I love the watercolor papers and brushes that they make for Procreate for iPad. So Drifter Studios, you can find them on Etsy. And then I talked a little bit about the Serif program because I really like it. Here's our table of contents. So I'll just sort of talk through and give you a little intro for what's up. So the first chapter really just kind of sets everything up for you. And just kind of level sets. So it's like, here we are. And then, so this book is called Your Tarot Toolkit. And in chapter 2, we sort of figure out what that is. And the whole point of this is that as you learn, as you grow, as you read, you develop a toolkit. You develop all these tools that you learn, and they go into your toolkit. And you learn to call on them when you need them to solve a reading. So that's the first chapter. It's all about identifying yours. The second chapter, rather. In chapter 3, we get into the major arcana for a little bit, and again, we just sort of look at them through the lens of life. So this is a pretty exoteric book. It's not about the Golden Dawn. It's not about pathworking, meditation, ceremonial magic. It's not about any of that. It's about reading tarot. It's about doing readings. And so what this chapter is meant to do is kind of recontextualize the majors in that way. And it's part 1 of 2 chapters on the majors. The 4th chapter is literally about measuring your progress. It's basically about figuring out how well you're reading, and judging the quality of your own readings. And this is one of the things that I'm proudest of, because for folks, one of the things that people struggle with is, how do I know I'm reading well? And this gives you an objective way to do that without having to rely on people's feedback. We get back into the major experiences. Again, this is about reading the majors through life in an exoteric way, that just grounds them. So that's that's chapter 5. And what we do in this chapter is we really go through the cards. I mean, this is a workbook like Tarot on Earth, so there's a lot of stuff here to do for you to engage in. It's a little less intense than Tarot on Earth, maybe. Not much. But, what we do is we contextualize the cards through different parts of life: love and romance, family and friends, work, career and finances, spiritual development, health and wellness. And then we also go through types of questions. So like the journalistic questions of what, where, why, how, who, when. We recontextualize the cards that way. So it's really about kind of filtering the cards through life, so that you're looking at the majors in a really sort of lifey way, not in like a magical way. We do a number on my favorite topic of context. And it's a fairly long chapter. And one of the things that this helps you do is recognize what context you have and what context is relevant. So there's some activities in here about that. You can see little doodles on the pages, which again, we're just sort of meant to like encourage you to do the same, basically. So we talk about context, and there's some activities around context. We get into your toolkit and what it is and how you can start working with it. Now, this is a chapter which includes working with elemental and numerological correspondences. So if you read Tarot on Earth, you will have already done the activities in chapter 7, but I still would encourage you to read what's in chapter 7, because obviously Tarot on Earth was looking at the suits through a completely pip-based system. This is focusing on Waite-Smith systems, and so I wouldn't, even if you already did the activities, this is a much simpler version of what's in Tarot on Earth, but you've already done more than you need to read this chapter, but you still want to read what I have to say about it, because what it's really about here is the thing that dogs a lot of readers. Chapter 7 and 8 are really about this concept of like, what happens when the different correspondences you learn for cards don't gel with the picture. And so chapter 7 and 8 are really all about that. So chapter 7 and 8 is about 2 sets of correspondences, number and element, that were not really part of the Golden Dawn system, and so they didn't impact what you see in the image. And then in chapter 8, we come back to the image and we explore a little bit about how the image is both what you see, but more than what you see, and how to recontextualize the image when it might be seeming to not answer the question in the way that you want it to. So we work with the image in context. There's a big chapter on the courts. This is a system that I've been working on for years and years. If you did read Tarot on Earth, this is very different from how I was reading the courts at that point. Very different. This is kind of where I've landed after years and years and years of kind of working and figuring it out. So while I stand by what I made in Tarot on Earth, this is kind of a evolution of that that's a little bit more mature for me as a reader. And it has evolved from the work I did in Tarot on Earth, but all these years later, it's grown, and I find that this is kind of a distillation of how I read the courts, regardless of the system I'm working with. The courts are an interesting thing because, well, you know, I accept the courts as they are in this book. You know, there's definitely something to be said for reframing the courts in modern genderless, non-royalist ways and jobs, for example. But again, because this is taking Waite Smith as the baseline, we kind of have to work with that. So I don't recontextualize them or rename them, although many modern decks do. I accept them as they are, and this is a way to work with that and work beyond the gendered and royalist qualities of the courts, while also recognizing that they are those titles. So this is a system that I've really, really worked hard on, and it really serves me well as a reader. And I'm hoping, you know, this is one of the things in the book that I'm proudest of. So I think it's my favorite chapter in the book. And we also talk about bias in this chapter, and I do a fair amount of examples here and sort of showcasing how I read and how you can kind of take everything we've worked with up to this point and read with it. And that's what a lot of the rest of the chapters do. So that's chapter 9. Chapter 10 takes us further into reading, and it talks about questions. What are good questions, how to phrase questions, etc. So it really spends a lot of time thinking about where we fail as when we're reading for ourselves and how we can support when we're reading for others. So that's that. Chapter 11 is about spreads. Now, I share one spread in this book, which is the one that I use for just about everything. And I deconstruct my issues with the Celtic cross. Surprise, surprise. But I demonstrate how you can work with my favorite spread, the 9-card spread, using all the techniques we've used up to this point. And I really do take it apart for you. Chapter 12 gets into just sort of dealing with things that happen when you start reading for others. So dealing with bad news when you have to give bad news in a reading. We talk a lot about ethics here and what modern tarot ethics look like, maybe more than or different than what they looked like 20 years ago. And also third-party readings, which I talk about actually throughout the book. And then there's this chapter about going pro, and what this is really kind of a very like down and dirty, like here's the reality of trying to make this a job. So it's very honest. It's definitely inspired by the book Professional Tarot by Christine Jetty, which I mentioned in the introduction to the chapter. But it's just like, here's the reality of it, and here's what this looks like, and you don't have to do that to be a good reader if you don't want to. And then there's just a little closing chapter. And then there's an appendix with some of the exercises, some of the activities in the book. I also included my answers for you, just so you had something to like think about. They're not like the right answer. They're just to give you what I sort of was feeling the day I did them. And then there's me, and then there's the back of the book. So this is the new book. I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of how it looks, and I'm even more proud of what's inside of it. I really think that, this is the result of 20, going on 22 years of struggling to be a really good reader and to work through my own limits and my own struggles and also my own successes. So this is really born out of both the things that I've found successful, but also the struggles I experienced as a reader trying to sort of move past that initial phase where you've kind of memorized the card meanings and you can read individual cards in a spread, but how to connect them to a question and how to really know that you're reading well. That's what this is about for me. There is a Kindle ebook version of this that launches on Friday. So today's Monday. Jesus. Oh my God. So in a few days, God, that was so depressing to realize just now. There's an ebook version of this. It will be available on Amazon. Look, it's the text of the book. So it's really difficult with e-readers to have, a decorative experience. So none of my doodles are really in there. Most of the card images are. All of the tables are in there, but you have to think that when you're looking at, if you're reading it on a little, Kindle screen, it's not the most elegant reading experience with all these tables, so just know that. You can see everything. I did get a preview of what it's going to look like, so you can see everything. But it's just not the same experience as this. So I made the ebook because I got a lot of requests for Tarot on Earth. I am going to make an ebook version of Tarot on Earth at some point too. It's just that it's a very difficult thing to translate a workbook into an ebook, because there are so many tables and they don't just flawlessly come over. So just know that, you definitely, you can use the ebook and you can get a notebook and recreate the tables in your notebook, which is fine. And you can do that with this too. It's just, it's not the most elegant reading experience because it's designed really to be something you work on, but it's out there and it's a little cheaper. So that opens Friday. This is available on Amazon now internationally. People got their copies before me. So, people are getting them really fast. It will be available at other retailers online at some point. I don't know how it takes a while. I think it took about a month before I found Tarot on Earth on Book Depository, for example. But it will be available. It's also available for distribution through the Amazon distribution program. So, like if you're a retailer, if you have a shop and you want to sell it, you can get like retail copies of it through them. So that's another thing that's out there. So there is an ebook version. It launches Friday. This is available all over the world and on Amazon now. And I know why people want ebooks, and the instant gratification certainly is great. And also I really like reading on an e-reader, but for this, I hope that folks go for the print version just because I think the experience is a little cooler. But that's my book, Your Tarot Toolkit. The second of my books. I'm working on a third now. I don't know. I mean, the third one is really going to be like, this is really meant for intermediate and advanced readers. The third one is really kind of Tarot 101, but like a whole course. And so it's taking me a while to get through that. And actually, I stopped working on it. My original plan was to try to submit this through publishers, and I just had a couple weird experiences. And I decided ultimately that the best thing for me to do, just to get this out into the world the way I wanted it to, was to self-publish it. And so that's what I did. But I put down the other book to get this in shape. So anyway, that's it. I hope you like it. I hope you get it. I hope you share it with your friends, and I hope it inspires you. Like I say in the beginning, in the first chapter, like you don't have to take any or all of what I say, but I do think that if you engage with it, even if you hate everything I suggest, you're going to be a better reader because you'll have wrestled with the cards in a different way. And that, to me, is more important than that you like it. So, but I do hope you like it because I'm a Leo. So be good. Take care. Talk soon.